Hi, today I'd like to discuss part 6 of Anna Karenina. If you were bored while reading these chapters, trust me, I feel you. But you should know that this is the calm before the storm, that the next part will be so much better. Before we talk about Levin, I have to mention something about mushrooms. In the chapter about mowing, we see the old peasant picking mushrooms for his wife. Then in part 2, we see Varenka wearing a mushroom hat. Then before Levin asks Kitty to marry him, we see her desperately trying to spare a disobedient mushroom with her fork. In this part, Koznyshev wants to propose to Varenka, but while talking about mushrooms, they realize that they don't actually want this. They're both idealists, they both live spiritual lives. They would seem like the perfect match. But they simply didn't click. Levin's reaction to Wisłowski flirting with Kitty sends us back to Karenina's reaction to Vronsky courting Anna. While Karenin didn't allow himself to get jealous and simply asked Anna to keep up the appearances, Levin doesn't care about the appearances and he got jealous right away. I think it's needless to say that most of the things that happened to Levin in this part come straight from Tolstoy's life, including the jealousy and the conversation about jam. And here's another interesting parallel that I noticed. Remember in the previous part, I mentioned Oblonsky's favorite words, nice fellow, which he used to describe Levin and Vronsky. In Italy, in the artist studio, they were used to describe Portia's pilot, and in this part, they were used to describe Wisłowski, I think 2 or even 3 times. And his name, Vasinka, is a diminutive for Vasily, or in English, Basil. Just a reminder, this nice guy flirted with Levin's wife in his house and ate his breakfast, among other things. Later, when we see him at Vronsky's, he seems more at home there. I mean, his behavior doesn't change, but Roski can't be bothered, and unlike Kitty, Anna is pleased with his advances because she likes power and she wants to make Vronsky jealous. On their hunting trip, Oblonsky tells Levin how a real man should be, that he should have his own interests and keep his independence. He sees nothing wrong with having fun with other women. His wife doesn't lose anything from it, and he's enjoying it, so yeah. And Levin concludes that he's gone soft because of Kitty. Why is he so impressionable? Does he really believe that Oblonsky's lifestyle is better than his? We know that there's some rivalry going on between the two friends now, brothers-in-law, but still, Stiva is right about one thing though, that Levin is a hypocrite. He enjoys his privileges, though he knows that they are unjust. He doesn't want to accept that he's exploiting people, because that would make him no better than someone like Vronsky, for instance. When we see him hunting with Laska, we can notice another reference to his relationship with Kitty. Do you remember the whole bear symbolism? Well, now he sees many bees. And what do bees produce? I think you get the picture. Unfortunately, the hunting chapters only proved that Levin is good at killing animals, that he is competitive, and that Laska is a good girl and it's more fun to follow her train of thought than Levin's. Oh, and his friends didn't leave him any food, which kind of justifies him being rude to Wisłowski later. What did you think about the provincial elections? I remember that the first time I read the book, I thought they were so entertaining for some reason. I believe that everything that was fun to read the first time round bored me to death the second time. At least we see them from Levin's perspective, and when he doesn't get what's happening, we don't really get what's happening. I like how it mirrors Dolly's inability to understand the tennis game at Vronsky's estate. Vronsky is trying to fill his spare time with different duties so that he wouldn't have too much time left to be miserable. He becomes a member of different institutions, and perhaps it's his way of asserting his male independence, as Levin put it. Levin's main reason for going to the elections is to help his sister with some financial matter. In part 1, he said that he quit the Zemstva, the provincial council, because he thought it was pointless. But now it seems that he tries to be more open-minded. It's also the first time he meets Roski after part 1, but I doubt that they'll become friends anytime soon. When Dolly visits Anna, it's the first time we see her away from her family, and we see most of the action through her eyes. Her frequent pregnancies have caused her great suffering and have disfigured her body, according to her and Steve at least. He isn't faithful to her despite all these sacrifices, despite her obedience. She saw her children die, and the ones who are alive take so much of her time and energy. She thinks that her life is ruined, and what for? But when she sees Anna, she sees the alternative, a woman in love, a mother who has abandoned her child, a mother who seems superfluous in the nursery. She doesn't know where the toys are, she doesn't know how many teeth her girl has, and she takes some form of birth control because her doctor advised her to. She tells Dolly that she can't keep Roski with children. Dolly, who is unable to keep her husband despite being pregnant so often. A simple solution for a complex problem. And I think it's pretty clear that Roski doesn't know about Anna's prescription. He wants to make her his wife, while she can see herself only as his mistress. There is no other explanation for her refusal to write to Karenina. During her visit, Dolly notices Anna's new habit. She is squinting. The first time someone does this in the novel, it happens to be Vronsky's mother, the woman who had many affairs, yet somehow managed to remain a part of the respectable society. When other characters are squinting, it's because they want to see, right? Anna does it for the first time at the ball, actually, when she looks at Kitty after her mazurka with Vronsky, and Kitty thinks there's something alien, demonic, and enchanting about her. In this part, Dolly thinks that she does it to avoid seeing her life as it is. She doesn't want to take responsibility for her actions, and this leads into another new habit. Anna takes morphine. She asks for it for the first time in part 4 after giving birth to her daughter. And now, in part 6, she says that she can't fall asleep without it. She does her best to convince Dolly that she is happy and that she's not trying to prove anything to anyone. She just needs her to tell her that she is happy. She feels like she should be, but she isn't. Vronsky's estate suggests some kind of motion, like the train, while Levin's estate suggests shelter, protection. One of them is a place for actors, and the other one is a place for a family. I don't know if your English translation mentions this or not, but I think that the connection between these two places is quite important. They are references to two Christian holidays. One of them celebrates the cross itself, and the other one Virgin Mary. Remember in part 1 I mentioned the English novel and that it would come up again? Well, let's see how this novel comes to life. Some critics believe that it's a George Eliot novel, and others that it's a Trollope one. Dolly sees Annie's toys and different devices. The routine is very strict, the interior is very English, and Dolly has only read about the new European luxury in English novels, and now she sees it in this house. In Anna's English novel, Lady Mary is teasing her sister-in-law, and now Anna is doing the same thing with Dolly. Vronsky's favorite phrase is the English not in my line. He uses it when he talks about Karenina with Oblonsky, and in part 6, the narrator mentions that it's his favorite expression. In Anna's mind, he becomes the hero she read about, the hero who is close to attaining his English happiness. In part 2, before the races, we see him speaking English with the stableman, and Anna arrives in Betsy's English carriage. In part 3, when Anna goes to see Betsy, she is surrounded by people who use English words. Small talk, cozy chat, I'm literally quoting the Russian text. And they're playing croquet while at Roski's estate, they're playing lawn tennis. Then in Italy, Roski buys a painting that the artist intended to sell to an Englishman. So Roski sort of replaces the Englishman in this context. As we can see, any foreign influence is a sign of falsehood. When Levin gets jealous in the first chapters, he uses the English word fuss, and we know that his English is bad, while Wisłowski's presence is linked to the use of English words and thus to falsehood. Children seem to be the best judges of honesty. Dolly's kids are very affectionate towards Anna when they see her for the first time. But after the ball, something is changed. They don't want to play with her anymore, and they don't care that she's leaving. She is in a different element now. Unlike Kitty and Levin, who are honest with each other, even though it can lead to conflicts, Anna and Vronsky have their skeletons. Vronsky has to ask Dolly to solve his conflict with Anna, just as Stiva asked Anna to do the same for him and his wife. Anna echoes her brother's words when she says that she isn't to blame for stealing Vronsky from Kitty. Stiva can't resist rolls when they smell really good. He is insatiable, while Anna's case is more complex than that. Is she responsible for marrying a man 20 years older than her, for being unable to love him, for having a child with him, for attracting Vronsky and becoming his mistress? Is she responsible for leaving Karenina after her illness, for her life with Vronsky? Is she a victim of the circumstances, or does she have a choice? I'm very curious to see what you think about this. I love this quote which expresses Dolly's feelings. All that day, she had the feeling that she was playing in the theater with actors better than herself, and that her poor playing spoiled the whole thing. I cannot count how many times I felt the same way. In part 1, Kitty's mother was thinking about different ways one could approach arranging a match for their daughter, and the English way gave the girl full freedom. So by choosing an English lifestyle, Anna finally attains freedom? Then why doesn't she look like a free woman? I think that she simply built another prison for herself. She spends so much time on herself, on being attractive for Vronsky. She takes interest in his projects. She takes care of the conversation while he takes care of the whole estate. Later, she uses their daughter's illness as a pretext to summon him home. And I think this tells us a lot about their relationship. So much is left unsaid, and they simply don't understand each other. For instance, at night, when Anna was high, Roski looked questioningly into her eyes, but she understood this look differently and smiled. Obviously, Vronsky wanted to know if she would write to Karenina. Tolstoy doesn't tell us what they did afterwards, but I think it's pretty clear that they didn't continue their conversation. Unlike Dolly, Wisłowski feels at home with Anna and Vronsky. He sees them as a family, while Dolly is ashamed that her husband's aunt lives with Vronsky, basically a stranger. It's much easier for her to accept them from afar. There's a lot of French in the novel, but I think that it's just as obvious in the English translation as it is in Russian. That's it for today. I hope that you can share your thoughts on this part in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye!